Welcome back into Running It Straight here on SENZ. You can text her anytime on 8833. Myself, Sammy, and Anthony Gelling taking you through until 3 o'clock talking rugby league. And joining us on the line now, a very special guest who is going to be celebrating Old Boys Week for the Warriors this week. It is former Warrior himself, Richie Blackmore. G'day, Richie. Welcome in.
Yeah, hey, gentlemen. Yeah, not the ideal way to celebrate Old Boys Week after the battering that the boys copped last weekend.
Yeah, mate, we've just been talking about that for the last 10 or 15 minutes. It's hard to, I guess, dissect and work it all out. I mean, what did you put it down to, mate? What did you see on Saturday that, I guess, as reasons why it was such a big margin in the end?
What do you want, the doctor's version or the specialist?
Give us the specialist. You're the expert.
I suppose, right. I mean, the signs were shown in last week's defeat after they went up 14 points to 0 against the Storm. And I guess you got to sort of look at the year as it sort of unfolded. Things might have, unfortunately, kind of pointed towards something not ideal in the future. And I guess of the game on the weekend against the Titans kind of was that not so certain what the future looks like. It's a tough year. I had to say a tough year for them moving forward from here. You're bound to have got some pick up some damage. There'll be some leftover scars from that result. As much as it'll be a huge push to be able to pull themselves out of what they've just gone through to get to a top 8 spot. That'll be a massive effort.
Yeah, and you mentioned the sort of signs being there over the course of the season, Richie. If you were Andrew Webster or coaching that side, would you have made changes? We were just talking about losing by 60 points, and I guess maybe the message it sends to some of the youngsters who have been given a shot and performed well to, I guess, not having guys, put on the bench or perhaps even rested, given they gave up 60 points in a pretty poor effort.
A lot of it's got to do, as far as coach is concerned, is how he's managed things moving into those spaces. Largely, things can start to show these signs, and if he had addressed them at the time, and I think if we were using signs to be addressed at the time, I think Adam Fanua-Blake's walking out of the change room would have been one of those signals. I think probably him wanting to go for a transfer at the beginning of the year might have been another signal. There's little things, and I think unless you're prepared to scratch them as you go along, you put yourself in a better position to identify them and not make changes to a team necessarily through knee-jerk reaction, but rather that there's things that just weren't quite operating nicely. Bringing in some young fellas and maybe as an example, threatening players that, is it a threat? It's not really a threat. You have to be honest with it, but I'll use the word threat for our conversation, but threatening players that you might be inclined at this point in time of the year to start looking at alternative options in terms of who's the roster. Whether he put it that way or not, if he didn't put it that way, it's very hard to then to change it, because then no coach really wants to fall into the knee-jerk reaction. It's a bad way to perform as a person in a leadership role.
Yeah.
But I think maybe he's missed a few beats and he's sort of hanging on a thread at the moment and maybe has regret. But ultimately, as a coach, look, You got to put your big boy pants on when it comes down to it.
Yeah,
you got to take the risk. One of the things you get paid for in any position as a leader is that you got to take you got to make the hard choices. Has he stood up to that? That's the question that probably everyone out in the league area are kind of asking. Where's he gonna go? Obviously, he's made no changes other than Shaun Johnson pulling out because of injury.
Yeah, and. And it's interesting, Richie, like I think one of the biggest and it's not sort of an overt criticism, but it's just a notice, something that you notice with Andrew Webster is obviously how loyal he has been as a coach over the last 18 months to Warriors fans. But to your point, I wonder if that comes back to bite you a little bit when you do need to make a tough call. To your point, you don't want to be seen as making a knee-jerk reaction, but, can you make the tough calls when they're necessary?
Hey, the tough call is that, you don't carry loyalty. Loyalty to individuals should never override loyalty to the game and to the purpose of what you've been fighting for over a course of time. That should be a non-negotiable, so it should not make it any harder for him to drop a Adam Fanua-Blake or Shaun Johnson as it would be to drop one of the young kids, because in the end, you've got a principle that you live by. And the minute anything tries to derail that, it should give you strength to make your choices you need to make for your so that when if you get booted out at the end of the year, at least you walk away saying, well, I did my best. Would I change things? No, I wouldn't have. then this is where it is, and so this is where it's ended up. I'll move on. But if you don't do that and you start to sort of second-guess your stuff, listen to people who may not necessarily understand what's going on a daily basis with your team and your players individually, collectively, then, well, you've got to wear it, ultimately. And,
No, that's a really good point. That's a really good point that you make there. And, it kind of makes me look at, almost like a promise or a loyalty given to Roger at the start of the season that he's going to play centre for the whole year. For yourself, you played centre and wing. When you look at Roger playing centre, what position do you think can unlock him the most? Is it at centre? Is it at wing? Is it at fullback? I don't know. Like, where do you think, what position does Roger need to be playing for us to see the best of him?
Well, I think first and foremost, I have no problems with coaches trying to shift players around a little bit to see if you can get the best out of numerous players as opposed to what's best for this bloke. I had Roger as a young kid going through the grades, and you know what? I thought he was better as a fullback than he was as a centre, but I played him at centre, funnily enough, because I had a fullback who was on the Warriors roster. Roger wasn't at the time, so I kind of kept that guy there. He wasn't a bad fullback, so I tried to get the best out of both worlds, and I think he was doing the same. He's probably in a position now where he has to think more about himself and what's best moving forward. Now, is it still keeping Roger at centre, or does he now have to try and unleash him into something else to get something more out of him? I think Roger's struggling personally as a centre. And that's largely because I think physically it's not really his position. I think fullback he's a bit more free roaming, but then what do you do with Chance Nicole Clockstead? So he almost moves into a wing spot. I'm not sure where you go with him. So you've just lost a guy that's been playing some good footy for a fair bit. No one falls off the planet entirely. It's a tough one for him. Centre, look, he's too good a player to be sitting on the wing. Let's all agree with that and put that idea to bed. So the only question is he going to go to fullback or not?
But if he's playing wing though, is he sitting on the wing or is he in field taking carries?
For mine, I don't care how he plays his wing. I think it's a waste of putting him on the wing. I just don't see that position for him. I think it's not the game for him moving forward. He's at the later stages of his year. I mean, if he was maybe 20, 21, 22, I would have saw that option as not a bad one. At 28 now. Geez, I think there's if you're really going to squeeze something good out of him, it's probably likely to go fullback. But I don't know what he's going to do with Chance. Is he just going to cut his losses, put him on the bench, and then he's using utility? Yeah, I suppose you could try that one. I mean, you tried a lot of other things. That's not a bad little push. I mean, Chance coming on, he brings a lot of energy if he was come off the bench. So I could see some benefit in that. I'll put myself into it. I'm putting Roger to fullback.
Yeah. Hey, Richie, I've been peddling this yarn for a few years now, but in 2011, I remember Roger being at our Auckland Vulcans training when you were coaching the Vulcans. And my version of the story has always been that he came to training with one of the Otahu boys with Phoenix and that you told him to bugger off.
Gee, that's a pair of those. You must have been at about 3 a.m. on the juice.
Not true. Is he telling fibs?
Well, I like this because in most stories there's a version of the story where Richie Blackmore's actually the hero.
Yeah, Richie, he's identified the talent. But no, the story tells Richie is that he was brought along and you basically said, this is not a kindy. I'm not looking after kids here. It's not Babysitters Club. He can jog on.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm being blindsided by your fellow's conversation. Look, I brought him down. He wasn't part of that thing. He was just a good talent, and I knew that he would inspire guys like Anthony Gallen, who needed a lot of inspiration to get to the next level. It worked.
Oh, that's too good. Hey, Richie, you played in that centre position. Like, if Roger stays there for the rest of the season, how does he get more involved? How do you get more involved as a centre? Difficult position because obviously you're a key on attack and defence. He had 8 carries on Saturday. I mean, I know he got Simbin, so 8 carries in 70 minutes, but it's basically a carry every 10 minutes. How do you get more involved as a centre?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one for Roger because you've got two choices. You either come in and cut people out, which you don't want to do because you ideally want to get a ball in a centre's position. Opportunities obviously get in there, dummy half or one off the ruck from yardage, but I mean that's just bread and butter, meat and sandwich sort of stuff. You want to be getting them in good ball, and how do you get them better than that? What are the second rows? Jackson Ford? he's not very good at passing the ball. So it's a catch-22 for him, as you say. If you want to get the bet out of him, it's not so much about how do you get the ball more to him. His question, and this is a question that has to stay into the box, is he better at fullback or centre? Is it a benefit for the team that he goes to fullback and you get more out of him, and then Chance then goes to the bench, and then we start to use Chance as a utility back? I think that's the conversation. He's looking. He's trying really hard at centre. I just don't think it fits his body shape. Centres tend to be more rangy. Tall. Those are that's just how it works out. And with fullbacks, there's a variety of reasons. It's more about how they understand and read the game and the ability to put themselves in those positions. And we know he can do that well. I think it'll be a good change for Roger. I mean, I know he's Webster's sat pretty tight on the idea that he's a centre, and we've got that Tuivasa-Sheck who's sitting in the background. Well, look, he's got another year. He'll be fine. I think for now they've got other things to answer. Do you free him up or do you bring him to a pick? Look, for your guys, I'd be willing to entertain moving him back to fullback and pull Chance onto the bench and just sort of throw the team around a little bit, chuck the young centre in, let him get some game time. So there's another benefit that warrants that adjustment. And look, you're trying to search for different things. He has to probably change his picture as how he sees the year and starts looking at the possibility of working towards the next year now. I think things have kind of the horses bolted. But again, the best mark of quality coaches is ultimately that they're going to visit a space and time in their career where they have to make tough calls, and not just 1, 2, or 3, but a lot of tough calls. And the Warriors, probably more than any sporting code in New Zealand at the moment, there's no bigger arena to make to be put into a position like that. There's a lot of support behind them, the pressure's behind them, and so on. The coach, look, everyone's smiling when they were winning. When we know awesome momentum, confidence and momentum are beautiful things. They're obviously the difference between last year and this year at the moment.
Hey, Richie, we've got to bust a move, but it's been absolutely fantastic to catch up with you. Old Boys Week this week, mate. I'm sure there's some good plans afoot ahead of the Broncos game. What are you picking for Saturday night at Go Media? Do you think the Warriors bounce back?
It's a big one. I mean, look, interestingly, because the Broncos are probably not far off where the Warriors are at the moment in a roundabout way. Putting the big beating on the weekend, putting that aside, they're wobbling. They're well below where I think they thought they were going to be. But their arsenal still doesn't look too bad. They're still in an emotionally reasonable shape. Signs that what the Warriors have shown, where they're teetering on the edge in terms of confidence, a collective understanding of where they're going as a football team. It's going to be a tough one to beat. I hope they do. It'll be nothing better than the bounty back. Geez, that'll be a lovely tolerance for people to.
Absolutely.
It'll be nice for the old boys.
Yeah, well,
do it for the old boys.
Do it for the old boys. Do it for the Richie Blackmores and put 60 on the Broncos. How good would that be? Richie, really appreciate you jumping on with us, my friend. We'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, nice one, gentlemen.
SENZ. It's Kiwi for Sport.